A few days later. The next few days pass in a blur. I spend most of my time huddled away in a medical lab, surrounded by white-coated technicians who poke and prod at me as though I'm some complicated puzzle that needs solving. Rebecca has booked a whole week of tests. Even though I agreed to them, it's starting to irk me a little. I haven't seen the outside world for so long, and being relatively idle is making my brain go a bit stir-crazy. This morning on my way to the cafeteria, I can't help but let my mind run to Unit Bravo. They've kept their distance, as has most everyone in the facility, and I don't know if it's because they're unsure how to deal with me now, or if they have no interest because they don't need to guard me like before. The team of them have bunked down here in guest rooms too, and my gaze flickers over their doors as I turn the corner of the corridor. As I make to pass by their rooms, as I have every morning for the past few days, I find my steps faltering to a stop outside of Adam's door. Unlike the ominous steel doors in the rest of the facility, the guest room doors are wood, though they're still slathered in that same green paint. I peer at the grain of the wood showing through the paint as though staring at it closer might give me some clue as to why I've stopped here. Do I really want to talk to Adam right now? The team leader is brooding and imposing in normal situations. I'm not sure how he's dealing with all of this. I can't seem to explain it. It's like I can't help but want to see him. My face contorts at the fuddle of thoughts that clash in my head. Okay, so there have been some moments, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That's just people being close. The more I try to clear my head, the more my teeth grind together. Shaking away the intrusive thoughts, I turn back to the door. Raising my hand, I bring it forward to thump it against the wood, only to almost topple forwards as the door swings open. Thankfully, I manage to keep my balance, snapping my hand back to my side and staring over Adam in the doorway. He stares back, a brow quirking up. Something you need, Detective. I was just checking in, I reply after regaining my composure, to clear the air with everything that's happened. He folds his arms, and my gaze flickers to his suddenly stretched t-shirt with emotion. It's light blue, the most color I think I've ever seen him wear. My attention flashes back to his eyes as he begins talking. That is unnecessary, he replies in a curt tone. I thought you were busy with the tests. The reminder makes my shoulders drop a little. I am. He nods. Then at least you can now be useful. The statement makes my eyes widen, a deep frown eventually settling on my face. Is this a thing you do all the time? I ask, arching a brow and letting out a breath. Insult everyone as much as possible. Adam's eyes narrow a fraction, though I notice his shoulders shift as though my words put a weight on them. I do not insult. I speak honestly, something I'm at liberty to do with you now that everything is out in the open. He meets my eye. Working with a human will only slow us down. It's like he just can't stop being an ass. I lean back, hands on my hips. I'm not exactly thrilled to be working with you either, being teamed with a bunch of monsters. The word growls from between his lips, and he takes a wide step forward towards me. There is a definite threat in his voice, and yet it's hard to ignore the pain that streaks across his face when he says it. My gaze snaps to meet his, the man having gotten even closer when he threw the accusation at me. I retreat a step back, staring over him for a long moment, unbelieving at the word he chose. You really think that's what I was going to say? The hostility in his stance drops. A frown fights for position on his expression, but it succumbs to regret instead. You really must think low of me if you thought that, I snap, folding my arms as much as he is. I apologize for my outburst, he says, a hand fidgeting on the doorknob so tightly I wonder if he'll crush it. It's hard not to be taken aback by the apology. So you should be, I reply, unsure what else to say. With silence greeting me in response, I make to turn away. Detective, Adam calls, and I spin back around. You are mistaken if you believe we think badly of you. Something I would appreciate you prove more often, I call back. A smile actually curves his lips. Touché. The British accent is gone for a split second, replaced by a very French one as he says the word. Ah, there you are. The doctor who's been treating my injury waddles forward, jostling a bunch of papers in his hands. I've been looking for you, Detective. Time for your checkup. He says it so cheerily he makes it sound like going on a ride at a theme park. When I glance over my shoulder, Adam is already retreating back into his room. I can't help but smile a little at the way the conversation ended. Seems we might be able to move forward after all. Detective? The doctor repeats, pursing his thin lips. Sure. I give a nod, following the rotund little man down the hallway and back to the medical room. Later that day. Whether it's afternoon or evening, I can't tell. The apocalypse could have happened, and I don't think I would have felt the slightest shudder down here. As I stride down the hallway, more confident in my way after a few days, I pass by one of the many agents who work here. They give a smile of greeting as they pass before glancing down at a small pad in their hands. Clawed hands. Talons curl out of their fingertips, clasping at the edges of the paper, and I'm surprised they can hold it without shredding it. It's certainly not the weirdest thing I've seen while I've been down here. The initial shock and surprise had worn off some time ago, but it's still not something that can just pass me by without notice. This world, it's a lot to take in. It's understandable why I was so confused about it all to begin with. Supernatural creatures secretly working to protect humans and others isn't something you ever expect to hear. But now that I've had some time to let the truth sink in, the fact that supernaturals exist, and I'm here to see them, is pretty exciting. A smile grows on my face at the promise of getting to learn more about it all in the future. Shaking the thought away, I reach out to push open the door to the common room. Once again, the intense, rich scent of frankincense is the first thing to greet me. The aroma is so strange after the lack of natural scents in the rest of the facility. Unit Bravo and my mother are already waiting inside, the team strewn about the room in the usual way while Rebecca stands to one side. A sudden silence descends over them all as I enter. A gold-trimmed clock clunking the time on the far wall is the only thing to make noise. You wanted to see me? I say, stepping further inside. The warmth and coziness in the common room is such a bizarre shift from the rest of the facility. It's hard not to feel like I'm shutting out another world as I close the door. Rebecca smiles. We've received some of the results of your tests from the science team. My eyes widen. That was fast. The agency is nothing but efficient, Nate says, his tone light. So, I begin, leaning against a corner table, the antique-looking table lamp wobbling slightly as I do. What weird and wonderful things did they find? Farah barks out a laugh while Adam shakes his head, apparently not approving of how I phrased the question. Rebecca holds a file in her hand but doesn't need to look at it as she begins to speak. As we suspected, the mutation in your blood means that a vampire's pheromones will have no use against you. I give a nod. It's a good thing to have confirmed, but it's what else they discovered that has us all reeling. The team lean a little closer, attention's caught. Rebecca smiles. It seems your blood doesn't just stop the pheromone abilities of vampires, but that type of power from all supernatural creatures. I frown. What does that mean? Many supernaturals have mind-altering or pheromone-type abilities of some kind, Nate explains, still obviously surprised at this information. Sirens with their voices, for example. And you are immune to all of them, it would seem, Rebecca says, no small amount of happiness in that statement. And what about our physical abilities? Morgan asks from one corner. Does her weirdness hinder those? Rebecca thins her lips, placing the folder down. Unfortunately, we believe the mutation does nothing to alter those. I notice as a small frown of relief settles over Morgan's features, but it's quickly veiled behind a fog of cigarette smoke. Physical abilities? I ask, the information finally settling in my already full mind. Speed, agility, strength, Adam explains. Most supernaturals are stronger than humans. Also our sensory abilities, hearing, sight, etc. But the fact that there may be more to discover about this mutation is astounding, Rebecca says, true excitement in her voice and lighting her expression. So, how does it work? Farah asks, shifting in the seat to face Rebecca further. That's something we're not sure on, she replies. It does seem to be some natural evolution or mutation. It makes sense, Nate adds, fingers on his chin in thought. Supernaturals have been in this world for a long time now, So it's understandable humans would begin evolving defenses against them, even if they don't know it. There is a collective nod from everyone in the room. Except there only seems to be one left in that evolutionary tree, Farah says, making everyone swing their heads around in my direction. I'm still confused. Why would Murphy want me if these pheromone things don't work? I ask. Good question, Adam says, and I almost topple over at his agreement. We have a couple of theories on that, Rebecca adds, though she hesitates to say anything more. Some I'm not so keen to think about. Has it got something to do with the way she smells different? Morgan asks, voice husky as she continues to puff on her cigarette. Rebecca stiffens. I believe so. Smells different? I'm not sure whether or not to be offended by her statement. Farah smiles, returning her attention to me. Yeah, it's something we all noticed on meeting you. You smell overwhelming, Adam suddenly stammers, gaining everyone's stunned attention. He stiffens, as though it was supposed to be a silent thought. More enticing than most humans. Just your blood, I mean. Uh-huh, Farah says, grinning at the team leader, who sneers and quickly looks away from the younger agent. Yes, well, Rebecca says, interrupting the heavy quiet about to fall over us. Adam steps closer to Rebecca. And what is going to happen in the meantime? She glances up at him, no longer with the softer expression of my mother, but the harder one of a leader. With the doctor's approval, Celeste will return to working on the case, and Unit Bravo are officially assigned to her protection until this is over. You will continue to work together to catch Murphy, but Celeste cannot go near him. We can have each other's backs, I say, looking at each of them. You guys have mine, I'll have yours. Nate smiles brightly, as does Farah, while Morgan bites back an obvious remark. Adam looks less than impressed at the suggestion. Where do we start? Farah asks. Murphy's got to know we're on to him now. Agreed, Rebecca says. I've had agents watching the hospital where he was working, and he hasn't returned. It seems he must have left in a hurry. Maybe he left something behind if he was in a rush, I say, thoughts of the case beginning to once again take precedence in my mind. It's nice to have something to focus on. She nods. My thinking, too. It's at least somewhere to start. After gathering up the folder, she begins to make her way towards the door. Murphy is still a threat, one we can't fully gauge the strength of. Be careful. Her gaze lands on me as she says that. The past few days have also been mostly absent of her presence, except for a few visits. My guess is that she wanted to give me space to deal with all of it, as the vampires had. It also might have had something to do with my reaction to her after all of this. It was pretty calm, considering everything she'd told me. I offer a smile at her obvious concern, warmed by it. My expression is more strained than expected, though. It's hard to forgive all of this, but still, she is my mother. Surprise flickers across her features before she returns the smile, her eyes brightening. And with the smile still in place, she strides to the door and heads out. When I glance back to the room, I find Unit Bravo staring over at me. Something wrong? I ask, curving a brow at their expressions. Farah holds up her hands. Just a sweet little moment to cherish is all. Enough, Farah, Adam chides, though there is no real strength behind the words. When the team leader throws me a glance, there is only relief in the gaze. The expression is gone before I can think on it further. It's the first time I've been alone with the whole team for a while now. The atmosphere is much tenser than it had been before I was told everything. Thank God we'll be out of this place soon, Farah says, following with a relief-filled breath. Back to the real world. It feels like we've been trapped down here. My mind continues to play out the conversation that just happened, and I look towards them with a confused frown. So, these physical abilities you guys have. I balance myself on the arm of a nearby chair. What sort of things can vampires actually do? Is it, really like the stories? Morgan scoffs, almost choking on her puff of smoke. I wouldn't confuse us for the creatures in those books. Nate ignores her, coming to stand a little closer. Some are the same. Strength, speed, agility, that kind of thing. How about sunlight? I ask. I've seen you all outside in the daytime. It's a bit more complicated than that, Nate replies. Adam sighs. We are affected by sunlight, yes, but we don't burst into flames. Our abilities are weakened quite considerably. Well, Farah adds, not looking up from where she's twirling her fingers around each other, Morgan's not as weakened as the rest of us, but that's only because she's damn strong to begin with. My gaze flashes to Morgan, who doesn't even flinch at being mentioned. So you are weak during the day? Not weak, Adam barks in defense. Still strong enough to deal with any threat that presents itself. I give a slow nod. Strength isn't everything, you know. Adam smirks, folding his arms. Then it's lucky we have a lot of other abilities, too. An ego of unlimited size being one of them, I say in retort. Oh, nice one, detective, Farah says with a chortle. Adam stares over me for a longer moment before a half-sneer curls his lips, and he swings away to face the other wall. I glance over the group, wondering how my next question will make them react. Is a stake to the heart the only way to kill vampires? Nate's eyes widen before he throws an amused grin over at Adam, who doesn't look nearly as amused by it. Farah splutters, chuckling. Planning to get rid of us already, detective? I thought I should be prepared for Murphy or other vampires. That's fair, Nate says. A stake to the heart would be effective, as would decapitation. The turn in conversation makes me shift uncomfortably. But you can heal from wounds, right? The memory of seeing it before my own eyes catches me unaware, and I shake it away. Yes, he says, from pretty much all injuries. Right, I reply, unsure what else to say as uncertainty seems to tingle in the air throughout the room. What about garlic? What about it? Adam asks, and I can't tell if he's joking or being serious. Nate chuckles. I quite enjoy it, actually. You mean it's not like poison to you guys? I ask. He shakes his head. No, though that's not to say there aren't substances that could incapacitate us, which you have no need to know of, Adam interrupts, Nate tensing at the interruption. I shrug. At least you can still enjoy a nice bolognese. Nate gives a laugh along with Farah, but Morgan only grimaces at the idea. Adam, I manage to notice, can't help but give a small smile before wiping it from his face. What happens when it comes to religious stuff? I ask, wondering how to phrase the question. Like holy water, crosses, that kind of thing. It's all very interesting, Farah replies, but that's about as much notice as we take. None of that stuff works? No, Nate says, and I notice an amused smile tug at the corners of his lips. Adam throws a narrow stare in my direction. Disappointed. No, just curious, I say, and he quickly shifts his focus away. Are any of you religious? It seems an odd question to ask a bunch of vampires, but I can't help myself. Morgan scoffs at the question, very loudly, which I take as a no. Nate sighs. No, none of us are religious in any way. I nod, an odd quiet descending over us. Rolling my lips together, I try to contain my chuckle before I've even asked the question. I don't get it, though. What? Nate asks, frowning. Why don't any of you sparkle? This time the chuckle edges out with the words. My amusement is joined by Farah, who laughs loudly from her place. The only other reaction I receive is from Morgan, who glowers at me with such hostility I'm surprised it's not burning through me. Oh, come on, I say in defense, raising my hands. You can't expect me not to mention it. Nate half smiles, lips pursing. Feel better for asking? Totally. I smile in return. The obvious question whirls inside my head until I can't contain it. I rub a hand over my arm. I guess the most important question I should be asking is if you do all actually drink blood. The room falls into a horrible quiet, one only broken by my breath, which is suddenly a lot sharper than it had been. Yes. The simple reply comes from Adam, his voice steady and unwavering, matching the stern stare he has focused on me. But not usually directly from humans or anything, Farah interrupts. The agency provides blood bags, more for some of us than others, right, Nate? I glance over at Nate, who takes a deep breath. He is obviously trying to remain unaffected by the strange comment. It's not just vampires, Morgan remarks, breaking the odd air. She cocks her head to one side. Lots of supernaturals indulge in blood. Let's, leave it there for now, shall we? Nate suggests with a light tone, though his words seem tense. I nod. Okay, I say, pushing myself up from the chair. I better go get ready to leave. A lot of stuff to pack, have you? Farah says with a joking smile. I shake my head, trying to suppress a smile myself. I guess I'll be seeing you guys around. See you soon, Detective, Nate calls as I turn to leave. Maybe things will be different this time. Now that I know everything, hopefully the team will be more willing to let me in as we continue working on the case. I can't help but hope, anyway.